Hey everybody, I'm back already. A few days ago, I showed you how with this team I believe that it's possible to solo Phase 3 of the Sith Raid. Everybody seemed to really like that video. The problem is most of you can't actually use it. I think most of you thought it was entertaining to see something like this pop up again, but it requires a very specific C-3PO one that's actually kind of weak. And most of you either don't have them because you didn't get them during the event, or if you spent the resources to get them, you've already upgraded them. So you can't really run that team. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can run the same team in Phase 4 of the Sith Raid against Traya, and it still works extremely well. I do about 30% in this video. The one I'm showing you, I did a little bit under 4 million. These guys don't have their best mods. If you modded them all for offense and modded it specifically for this, you can touch over 4 million. It's pretty consistent. It's very easy to run. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to show you how it works. So the very first thing I'm going to do is put Unbreakable Will on either Luke or Han. It doesn't really matter which one, but you want it on one of them. So there's two ways to do that. First, you can mod your characters so that Luke, for example, has the highest health plus protection. I'd have to take some of the mods off C-3PO, but I could have done it that way. Or I've got these ads on the side, and I just took one of them out and hoped it went to Luke or Han. You've got a 50-50 chance. Might have to restart a few times, but it's very early, so it doesn't take very long to do that if that's what you have to do. And then you're basically going to run the same thing that we saw in the previous video, but there's a couple advantages here. So you might notice that these bonds of weakness are stacking. We're going to get that unbreakable will on Han, in this case it's Luke. It can be on Han. It works either way, and that's going to prevent anybody else from dying, because once you get in this little rhythm here, nobody's going to get any turn meter naturally. So that will stay on why do I keep saying Han? That's going to stay on Luke. I've got another video where it's on Han, but I went with this one. They both got about the same damage, so it doesn't matter. But you'll see that his turn meter pretty much never moves, so he's going to keep that the entire time. Traya has no area of effect attack, so they can't take anybody else out. Whenever he gets isolated, you do want to remove that so that he can counter. Because if you didn't see the first video, anytime we get any resist here, everybody except BB-8, because BB-8's not a rebel, everybody's going to gain 5% turn meter. So whenever Luke counters, that's going to give us some extra turn meter because everything's going to get resisted. The big difference here, a couple differences as far as getting turn meter, and while this loop's going to be complete pretty much the entire time, is a couple things. First off, we can get turn meter reduction in this phase, so that gives us a few extra chances for resist. And then Traya does gain stacking tenacity in this one. She is not down, so she's going to gain stacking tenacity every time that she's hit. So maybe if C-3PO, who has a lot of potency here, we might be able to get a few debuffs if he's taking the first turn after Traya goes. But after that, Traya is going to resist absolutely everything. So everything's going to get resisted. The downside is that Traya is going to gain 5% turn meter every time she is hit. So she's going to take turns. This is not going to be an endless loop. It's a loop, but it's only going to last 15 turns. You'll see we'll get about 30% damage, so this essentially has a timer on it. You won't be able to solo the whole thing, but we still get some pretty decent damage. If you didn't watch the first video, I'll kind of walk you through here what exactly is going on and why we were able to get a complete loop. C-3PO calls a mass assist, which is going to call a bunch of basic attacks. Rebels will try to expose Traya on every basic attack. So that's a lot of resist, gives us a lot of turn meter. That's on a 3-turn cooldown. That cooldown is reduced by 1 every time C-3PO uses his basic. So when he calls everybody to assist, one person that he's going to call is BB-8. I guess not a person, that's a droid, but whatever. BB-8 then calls a random resistance ally. There's only one resistance ally, that's C-3PO. So he gets a basic immediately after using his special. The other basic comes from Ezra. And Ezra can call either C-3PO or not R2-D2. Why can't I get anybody's name right? Call C-3PO or BB-8 to assist. If we call BB-8, he's going to then call C-3PO, and that's another basic attack. So those two basics reduce that to a one-turn cooldown for C-3PO's mass assist. So every time he goes, he is using that mass assist. Ezra's assist also has a three-turn cooldown. Anybody that has three stacks of translation, all their cooldowns get reduced by one every time C-3PO uses his basic ability. So Ezra can call assist every time. C-3PO can call assist every time. That's why we're able to do this infinite loop basically. With Han, I always use his special attack because he gains turn meter equal to his critical chance. That's going to be over 100% thanks to the translation, and he's got high natural crit anyways. So that's basically a free turn. So I always use that. I with Luke's call to action, I'm kind of jumping around here, but Luke's call to action, it doesn't really matter whether you have it or not. One way he's going to be doing more damage every time he attacks. Another way he's going to be countering more often. So I mean, I didn't see a huge change in damage one way or another. There might be one that's slightly better, but it's not worth worrying about. There are some other characters you can sub in. I know that's the most common question I get with these teams is who can I use instead of this character? Either I want to use this character in a different part of the raid, or I don't have this character. Most common one is BB-8. Everybody likes to use BB-8 in the resistance team in phase 1, and that makes sense. That team's going to do more damage than this team. So your preference would be to use your main resistance team. Although not everybody gets to attack. So some people are going to get this far and didn't get a chance to use that team. So they might use BB-8 here. But there are alternatives. I haven't actually tested a lot of them. But with BB-8, you're going to need somebody that can call and assist to make sure that C-3PO's attack is always on cooldown. And the the tune I would use to replace my first instinct would say Hera. Now Hera wasn't a great option previously because she gives potency whenever she calls to assist. Potency doesn't matter here. You see we're spreading BB-8's buffs all over the place. He's giving extra potency. Only on the first turn after Traya does it actually matter. So right there you saw we got I think C3PO I think it went so fast. I think he inflicted offense down. Not a big deal. We've got so many debuffs here that one or two resists on that first turn isn't a big deal. But anyways, Harris should be able to take that spot just fine in theory anyways. I haven't actually put it into practice, but I don't see any reason that it wouldn't work. Now, one thing you do have to be careful with is Ezra gives turn meter to whoever he calls to assist. So in this case, I'm calling BB-8 to try and give him turn meter so that he can um, use his ability to spread all these buffs. I don't call him all the time because that ability is on such a long cooldown that it's not always up. But we cycle through it pretty quickly, and I keep those buffs up for a lot of the time. If he's calling C-3PO, his turn meter is going to jump 40%, and you don't want C-3PO to go too fast where he jumps over Hera and doesn't get his cooldowns reduced. So that would be the one thing that would concern me there. But I think you could still make it work. You could always sub Hera in for Ezra as well. You're not going to get the turn meter gain that you get with Ezra, and she's not going to do near as much damage as Ezra, so not as good of a choice, but would still work in this one. CLS is obviously a must. C-3PO is a must. You can't sub either of those guys out. Han is not really a requirement. You see, we get to the end of the video here. Unfortunately, Traya dispels all of those buffs, so now we don't get the mass assist call. CLS is eventually going to take a turn here, and it's all going to end. You could sub somebody in for Han if you wanted to use Han someplace else. He's not really a required character. He does a lot of damage, so he's great there. If he gets that unbreakable will, it works well because he has bonus counter chance, so he'll counters with a lot of damage. Any high damage rebel would fit in there. If they can inflict a debuff on their basic, that certainly helps give everybody turn meter. If they do a lot of damage, that's good. He's probably the easiest character to sub out in this one. You obviously are going to want it to be a rebel. The more damage they do, the better. But there's a lot of flexibility here. It's not near as strict, not near as difficult to run as the Phase 3 team. It's not really as entertaining. Nothing crazy here. No breaking of the raid. Nothing that's going to put people in an uproar or anything controversial or anything like that. But this one is a lot more practical and something that a lot more people will be able to actually get use out of. Um, it's nice to have an actual team here that works specifically for Traya in Phase 4 because we don't really have a lot of teams like that. It's basically just, okay, throw everything you have left at Traya. So it's nice to have an actual team at the end here. So I do think this has a lot of use. So again, feel free to ask me questions. Twitter, Discord. I'm on the forums, Reddit. Obviously, the comments here are one of the most popular places. I try to get back to as many people as I can. I get a lot of comments, so it is hard. But I try to reply to all of those. So thanks again for watching. I am planning on doing one more video with this team where I'm going to try out some different compositions in Phase 3 to see what works there. So be on the lookout for that video. Be sure to subscribe. But otherwise, see you all next time.